We have done stunning, marvelous things, we human beings, the self-made masters of this earth, the thinkers, the dominant species, gifted with reason, obsessed by the driving need to change and achieve and overcome.
6, 5, 4, we've gone for main engine start, we have.
And yet, for all of our genius, we owe our success more to providence than to math or physics or philosophy. We owe it to this. A simple, primeval flicker of heat and light called fire. All that man is springs directly from fire. Without it, had we never tamed it, our fragile breed would have died out unmeasurable eons ago, alone and cold in the dark of some terrifying prehistoric night. The story of man is a saga of fire, an adventure without equal. Imagine time warping back 80,000 years to the very moment when our ancestors grasped the secret of making fire. Imagine that sudden flash of wonder, that point of no return in time, when man ceased to be a savage pawn of nature and took his destiny in his own hands, when he kindled the first faint sparks of his humanity into a flame that would light his way through the frightening shadow passages of the future. I'm Orson Welles, and I'm here to take you on that long journey back to where fire and the future began, as we go behind the scenes of an electrifying new motion picture never ventured before on a theater screen. An odyssey of science fantasy and action drama based on rock-solid research which sweeps away the dust of 800 centuries to give us what may be our first true glimpse of where we all came from, of how we conquered a brutal, hostile planet and learned to love and care and hold on to each other in the process. Join now with me and a group of unique, gifted movie makers in a search for ourselves. Join us in The Quest for Fire. Behind the making of every movie, there is a driving force. And behind Quest for Fire, that force flows from Academy Award-winning French director Jean-Jacques Annaud.
And you think he is beautiful. You admire him.
Obsessed since childhood with the story of prehistoric man and fire, Annaud has spent 5 years of his life personally shaping Quest from original concept to final print. 3 years alone on research and refinement with screenwriter Gerard Brock. An exhausting effort to create a Star Wars in reverse. A science fantasy, a quantum leap. Not forward, but straight backward in time.
The story we're telling and the actions in which we involve our heroes are possible in that period. We wanted a fantasy, but we wanted a fantasy which would have been possible.
Many scientists theorize humans first used fire as long ago as 1 million years, with the appearance of Homo erectus, the first upright walking man. He did not know how to make fire, but he was smart enough to steal it from natural blazes touched off by lightning or volcanoes. Fossil evidence shows that tribes often kept the same fire burning for generations on end, guarded to the death, lest the magic smolder out. Fire lighted up the night for man. It kept him safe from the predators and allowed him to share the comfort and security of newfound comradeship. By the glow of prehistoric campfires, the first rudiments of spoken language arose. The first urges to create art. The first feelings of clan and family. Fire spawned them all. At long last, there was time to think thoughts and finally express them out loud to someone else. When man found his voice in the firelight, he found his true identity.
Fire was a place where you gather and you start explaining what was your day, miming your day, and giving some sounds with it.
Quest for Fire draws upon a museum full of anthropological research, but in director Arnaud's hands, it is not a documentary. It's a classic motion picture adventure. The reality of fact and theory brought to life by careful fiction, then fleshed out with believable human characters, pitted against a plotline fraught with every danger imaginable, recreating the world as it actually was in the dying days of the last great ice age. The time, 80,000 years ago. Prehistoric man, Homo sapiens, is locked in a life and death struggle against the half-man, half-ape Neanderthals.
Take one.
The story centers on the Ulams, a tribe of Homo sapiens who lose their only source of fire during a bloody Neanderthal attack. Unable to make fire on their own, the Ulams send 3 warriors on a journey into the wilderness to find and recapture the flames of survival. And thus begins a spectacular trek across the landscape of another time, during which the warriors must overcome man and nature and their own primitive fears alike. Along the way, they encounter Ika, a woman from a rival tribe. She bears a gift as precious as the fire they seek, the emotion of love.
It's the beginning of love, it's the beginning of caring and tenderness.
It's a romance in primitive style.
The code of behavior, humanity and friendship and comradeship.
Quest for Fire was filmed entirely on location for full authenticity. Arno spent 3 years scouring 5 continents, 3 years in search of locations which would match prehistoric environments to the smallest detail. Places with no sign of modern man, but close enough to civilization to support an army of movie makers.
We had to find the wilderness not too far from a road and not too far from an hotel. And when I say not too far, my unit would kill me because they had to walk sometimes for an hour and to drive also for an hour. This is 4 hours of transportation per day. But that was the condition to find wilderness. We picked Scotland for a number of scenes with animals. We picked Canada because it's an enormous country. And we picked Kenya because there is both accommodation, transportation facilities, and tremendous landscapes.
Biting cold in the north, scorching 120-degree furnace blasts on the sub-equator, the ferociously changing conditions encountered during 12 weeks of location shooting demanded that Quest for Fire be cast with special actors. Actors with exceptional physical endurance and great good humor, able to work 16-hour days exposed to the rawest of elements with little clothing to protect them, or none at all.
We shot 3 weeks in Scotland, where it was anywhere from 25 degrees Fahrenheit to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. We were walking on cold rock, sometimes frozen heather, climbing trees in the cold weather and stuff, all for the authenticity of the ruggedness of the elements that these people faced.